You're listening to a little bit of happy jazz this morning. Positive morning vibes to start your Saturday morning. Again, welcome to those of you on Facebook, those who are joining me via Zoom this morning. Good morning. Come on into the classroom. Come on in and greet your friends, your neighbors. It's good to see you all coming into the classroom this morning. 1 second here. See all. Oh, hey Cheryl, it's good to see you. We're waiting for your classmates to come out of the hall and get into the classroom, but we'll be getting started here shortly. For those of you who are on Facebook Live, who are listening or tuned in to the Oasis Spiritual Center, again, we welcome you to this morning's presentation. Make sure you are hitting share and like. That really helps and takes us a long way. All right. I'm just making a couple notes here before we get started. All right, this morning I will not have my virtual facilitator. She had something that was pre-planned, and so I will be handling both platforms by myself. I'm getting myself together here. You see I have my little Africa on my chest this morning. Africa is the center of my heart, the center of my being. And you see that little stone there, that's vibranium. So if you tuned in to Wakanda, you know vibranium was that essential element that they were trying to get a hold of. All right, we're just gonna wait right here. I know that there'll be quite a few more people joining us. So while I'm waiting on them to join, I just want to encourage those of you who are joining this morning. We are in the midst of a 12-week Saturday school presentation. Now, Saturday school starts each and every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on the Zoom platform. But I also make room for it to show up on the Oasis Spiritual Center and give you the opportunity to push it out to your particular page. I want to say good morning to Faye, Ken, Mom, Cheryl, Trinity. Those are some of those who are joining me by the Zoom platform this morning. And then as I look on Facebook, I see Dorothy. Good morning, Dorothy. Good to see you. Make sure you guys are hitting share and like out there so we can get people to populate the space. Well, I'm not doing it necessarily to have these large numbers, but I am doing it to be an influencer of this conversation that we're in this morning. And you should have gotten an email. This morning's email, you would have found inside that email the playback from last Saturday's presentation. And you also should have received your handout again. And there was a special 15-minute presentation, a YouTube presentation introducing you all to New Thought. That's incredibly important that you understand a little bit about New Thought, because we have a level of relevance as you move forward in engaging me. Well, I'm looking at my clock, and it looks like it is just about that time. And so we're going to make some shifts right now. I want to get everybody into the space, everybody into the classroom. We got a bunch of people up and about, so we're just going to do a little bit of this. All right, good morning. You heard the bell. That means it's time for you to take your seat. Come on into the classroom. Those who are in the Zoom room, welcome. Those of you who are on the Facebook Live, I want to welcome you all also on this morning. I am so excited, and my excitement is steeped in. We are on the verge of spring coming forth. We had a 72-degree day last week here in St. Louis, and we are scheduled to have a couple of 70-degree days this week. So I want you all to know that I am as excited, more excited than a kid sitting in grandma's kitchen with her baking up a cake and she gives him the pan to lick it. Yes, that's how excited I am. I love the spring, the summer, and the fall. I do not like in any way, but I tolerate. I adjust to the season of winter. We need all four seasons. It gives us the ability to, in the winter, we should go inside, and we should just power down and not even be creating anything. Just for a part of the winter season, from December 21st to March 21st, you should, that first portion of that, a third of it, should just be quiet to listen. Then you do a period of recapitulating. You look at what this last year has meant to you. And then you begin to be open to what source will be dropping in your spirit, that you may create something wonderful as you move into the new year. And the new year starts in spring. I know, according to the Gregorian calendar, according to this world system, we start our new year on January 1st. That is why we're so confused, because we're in the world and participating in the world. We have to be in the world, but not of the world. We must understand that the universal principles trump, and I hate to use that word now, it trumps the world system. But if you choose to be in the world, that's on you. If you choose to try to adulterate who you are by being in the world and of the world, you won't show up as powerfully as you can. Now, you're going to have some successes and you're going to have some losses, but I came to tell you this morning that you can live a life of mastery. That doesn't mean you won't have any level of contrast, but it simply means that when contrast shows up in your life, it gives you the ability, the opportunity to don your super cape and to hit it head on and overtake it and win. Because without the contrast, you don't know how great you are. So look at contrast very differently than you've been looking at it. Again, good morning. I want to say to those who tuned in on the live, the Zoom live, those who are registered, good morning to you all. For those of you on my Facebook page this morning, it's good to see you, Shawanda, Sheree, Dorothy. Go ahead and make sure you're liking it and sharing it, so others can get into the room. And those who are just watching and not saying, I want to welcome you. So let me get started this morning. I have about 40 minutes of your time, and I want to give you the greatest value in that time frame. Saturday school, every Saturday, 8 a.m. I'm sorry, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here in this virtual space. Saturday School is hosted by Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. We do not promote religion, but we express spirituality. I like to preface my conversation each and every time I come before you by letting you know I am unapologetically a black man. I am also steeped in my beginnings started with Christianity, traditional Christianity. And I'll despise the times of my beginning. But I understand that that has been the pathway, that's been my soul path, that I chose to come into this earth realm inside of that experience. But I also understand I was born at this particular time in order to help individuals to transition from what has been to what is, to move those of you who have been deeply steeped in the religious systems, the thoughts of the Piscean age, and prepare you for that new age that is on the horizon, that is coming up above the horizon, and that is the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is the water bearing woman. And as she brings the water, which represents spirit, it represents moving from the age of physicality, the age of knowledge, that is based, steeped inside of the sensory realm, to the age of walking as divine beings, spiritual beings, using intuition over intellect, but allowing for intellect to support the intuitive. And the intuitions that you get will expand your intellectual property. So I'm excited to be born at a time such as this. I am a 60s child, and I'm excited. I was on the back end. I saw a lot of things. Many of the things that some of you read in books, I actually lived them, observed them as a young child, 7, 8, 9. They were being aware of things being burned down, being aware of certain leaders being assassinated. I actually was present to that, just like many of you are present to what is going on via the television with the recent shift in our political atmosphere, the 4 years we had inside of that to where we are today. So I am a 60s child. I seen some things. I experienced some things. I was able to hear from those elders. And so I'm excited to be here this morning. I'm excited. The class that we're in, the basic principles of the science of mind. It's a 12-week course, and I encourage any of you, you can purchase a book. The book is entitled the same, The Basic Principles of the Science of Mind. 12 lessons. It's a home study course written by Dr. Frederick Bales. I highly recommend you put that in your library. Now, if you didn't, I want you to look at the video that is inside the link that you clicked on to get into this class today. There is a video about New Thought. It's about a 15-minute primer, excellent primer of what New Thought is. Now, so I'm not inside of the traditional religious path of Christianity, but I identify with Christianity, and I'll tell you why. Primarily because it is the trail that leads me back to the unadulterated version of spirituality before the European influence. So I read things about Christianity, to study the history of Christianity. I study the history of Judaism, the Kabbalah. I don't really study so much Islam because I know it's all the same. But I look at Christianity, Catholicism, and Judaism as three primary streams that merge into one stream. And the stream appears oftentimes. I got change my phone here. See what's going on. So I have to let them know that I am not available. Okay, good deal. So the stream leads back to Greece, and then when you look at Greece, you have your Socrates, your Plato's, all of those individuals who are attributed to being the fathers of deep thought and even the fathers of our religious systems. And then there's another tributary there that has to do with the German influence. So why do I say that? Because when we look at the traditional Christianity, and in the early 1800s, mid 1800s, there was a rise of a new thought, a new form of expression of spirituality that was steeped in the teachings of this woman, Madame Blavatsky, out of Germany, steeped in mesmerism. You'll find a little bit about who was Mesmer. When we say we're mesmerized, it has to do with the magnetism that he was operating with, and he come to realize that it wasn't the magnet that was getting people to change. We're going to talk about that. We look at people like Mary Baker, and there's some others individuals that gave us divine science, science of mind, the New Thought movement, which we have now. All of those things. Now, the issue I have with New Thought is the same issue I have with the traditional religions, even though they're more expressive and more expansive. They make room for us to look at things in a different way. Let me cut this heat off. It's kind of hot in here. Because when I get to talking, I turn the heat up. All right. So, New Thought. It is just as guilty as Christianity, Catholicism, Protestantism, Islam, but I don't get into that conversation too deep. I don't need to, because 3 of the 4 do the same thing, and it's in the same group. Discounting the African influence on the belief systems. So in essence, what they've done is they've taken the basic principles, or they have taken that which they thought they understood out of the Nile Valley spiritual system and overcast their own cultural perspectives, and now given us a religious system, which works for some, to a certain extent, but it's not working with the power and the effectiveness that it should, because it's adulterated. The word of God tells you that the traditions of men make the word of God of no effect. And I'm not just talking about the what we get in the Bible, but where that is steeped from, that until you understand nature, or we call it uh, neteru represents nature. That's where we get our word nature from. It's a Kemetic word that represents nature. And the biggest teacher for the Cometians or for the Nile Valley civilizations had to do with their understanding of the need to be one with nature, understanding nature, and that nature gives them the best glimpse of who the creator is and how we're all connected. So when we come to New Thought, I've been studying New Thought. I would say I made the shift to New Thought probably 10 to 15 years ago. And I was amazed. Now, here's a New Thought person that you got. Okay, so I started New Thought by paying attention to Johnny Coleman. If you don't know who Johnny Coleman is, she was the first African American female out of the Unity tradition, and she had the first mega church in Chicago. Some years ago, I had the pleasure of someone gifting me a bunch of her books. One of her teachers was retiring, and I worked in the same space with her. And this is 90, and she gave me a bunch of books. That was my introduction to New Thought. So Johnny Coleman is a name you need to become familiar with. You probably won't see her name mentioned much, but she is, the ministry is still in play there in Chicago. A dynamic brother is leading that ministry. So that's something I would encourage you to look into. Another person that you're probably familiar with, but you don't know that he is a New Thought, or was a New Thought. He talked about money all the time. You know who I'm talking about? His name on the tip of my tongue right now. Um, just dropped off my tip of my tongue. Um, when people think of him, they think of all he talked about was money. But he talked Reverend Ike. There it is. I registered it. Okay, so my brain is kicking in this morning. So maybe I need a little more coffee. All right, good. So Reverend Ike is a New Thought teacher, and I would encourage you to really take a look back at some of his teachings. Don't look at it from the filter that many people have told you. All he talks about money. Well, the reality is, if that is what he only talks about, how relevant is money in your life? Could you could you use a little bit more? So if you are at odds with the conversation about money, then what you're saying that you don't want money, and if you don't want it, it don't want you. So many times we have this conflict going on inside of us about the way we think. So I have an issue with New Thought. So even though I identify with New Thought, I really have created something new. And I want to say it right here. I want to take ownership for it. It's called Now Thought. The only thing that really matters is what you're thinking right here, right now. What you thought yesterday only matters in the realization that it has created what you are having today. You are now living that of yesterday. But Now Thought says that if I can change, and this attributed to Asar, you heard it here first. What's today? Today is February 5th, I believe. So February 5th, 2021, I go online promoting a, a new system called Now Thought. You may say, what gives you the audacity to promote or introduce a new system? Well, what gave them the audacity in the early 1800s to create what is known as New Thought? See, I want to be very intentional at this point in my life and as I go forward. I have so much time ahead of me, but it will not be lived in this dimension. I have little time left, maybe 30 years left. That'll put me right at 90s. But I believe I got a good 39 years left. Something tells me in my heart of hearts that when I was a little guy saying I want to be a centurion, that I'm going to get the opportunity to live to 100. But now I just don't want to be here in a vegetative state at the age of 100. I want to have the spark of life. I want to be spry. I want to be able to walk. I want to be able to move about without having one of my daughters or one of my sons having to monitor me, even though they're going to try to monitor me anyway. But I want to be off the chain at 100. Some of you guys are laughing. You can only imagine. So uh, I want to you to understand this morning. Now thought is steeped in this basic premise. What you're thinking, the thoughts you hold in the present are the thoughts that will become present. They will manifest for you. So this morning we are talking in session 2 about or lesson 2 of session 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit some highlights from lesson 2 in the book, Science of Mind. And then there is a deeper lecture that is already recorded that will go into the deeperness of this. But I'm just going to go through this for the next, what we got here. We could probably get about another 40 minutes. I'm just going to highlight the things that really I believe is present right here, right now, based on who's on the call, based on those who I see in the Zoom line, Zoom room, those of you on the Facebook live feature. And I want to say good morning again to all of you out there. Hey, Renee, Dr. Tumpe, it's good to see you this morning too. Dr. Tumpe is taking the leadership of the ministry that I fellowship with, and that ministry is right here in St. Louis, Missouri, the Center for Divine Love. So if you're in the St. Louis area and you want to catch me on any given Sunday, it's where I go to get fed, where I go to give back. Join me there. The church is over on Wyoming. That's south on Grand. So you get to Wyoming, you make a right, or if you're coming north on Grand, you make a left, and you will see this big, beautiful building. And we're not taking individuals. We are limited right now. Just the team who are putting the broadcast together on Sundays. So join that page too. That page is the Center for Divine Living, Divine Love. Join that page. So good morning. I want to say, send a shout out to her this morning. Okay. So Shawanda says Reverend Ike. Yes, Reverend Ike was always my favorite when I was a kid because he was always sharp as 2 pennies. Okay. He was always sharp as a tack. He was always dressed to the nine. And he was able to present with such articulation and clarity. He mesmerized in a positive way that clientele, those individuals he reached in the New York area. So I'm not trying to be a Reverend Ike. I'm not trying to be a Johnny Coleman. I'm not trying to be a anybody except a Sar. Okay, I am the greatest version of God, expressed as God through me. Nobody else could present as God through me like me. So I want to do that. So this morning's lesson has to do with the lesson is entitled Thought and Its Power, the ability of thought. Now I have a challenge. When we look at many people shift into the mind power after having said what they were doing wasn't working. But then they mix mind power with matter power. It's just like they heck up to the point where they don't want to take medicine anymore. They say that was matter and there's something more powerful than the matter of the pill, and that thing is thought. And so what we see is people move from taking medicine, but then they take on another matter of what would be the conduit through which the manifestation comes. They may say, I'm going to do stones, I'm going to do cloth, I'm going to do whatever else you pull in that you give power to that thing. Like Mesmer, when you study the history of the brother Mesmer was he made clocks, and at that day and time, clocks use magnets. And so he began to teach that you can heal yourself through the use of magnets. And he so bought into this, he healed himself with it, and he had a huge following back in the day. And he affected many of, like Mary Baker Edie. He affected her and those who came out after him, Quimby and all of those people that make up New Thought. One day he went to do a lecture and he forgot his magnets. So he shifted his presentation and still taught the same thing, but he didn't use the magnets. And he found the efficacy or the power behind that was just as influential. So he began to teach the lesson without the use of magnets. He began to really hone down into the power of the thought, the power of the mind. And so I'm only saying that because, yes, it's good to understand the chakras, it's good to understand the colors, the numbers, vibration, and all of that. But the most powerful thing is how do you integrate that with thought? And do we need a go between the thought and the manifestation of a thing? I'm one that believe that we don't. I believe that we have the power, and the power is within us, and that power is us. And so we need to begin to give that some consideration. So we're going to look at today why our thought has power. We're going to look at materialistic versus spiritual thinking. Thought becomes things. That's man's highest thought. Okay. Now, if your highest thought is a low vibration thought, then that's to be the highest manifestation that you will receive. If you believe that you got to crawl before you walk, you're going to find yourself crawling for a long period of time until you have satisfied what you believe. I've been on my knees long enough. But some kids just come out the womb running. I had my son Tony. He didn't crawl for long. He walked relatively quickly, and I believe that's because his brother, who was 13 months older than him, he saw him walking and he saw himself crawling, and he said, if he could walk, I could walk. And that has been his quest his whole life. Anything he saw his brother doing, he could do too. Or anything he saw someone else doing, he saw himself doing it. We're going to look at what can we know of God. God is order. God is harmony. God is power. God is wisdom. God is love. We're going to talk briefly about man reproduces the infinite nature. So we reproduce our infinite nature. We're going to talk a little bit about treatment, a turning to perfection, treating for health, treating for prosperity. Now, that word treating is a science of mind term. We treat for it instead of just saying, I'm praying for you, I'm going to take it to treatment, okay? We're going to look at how to eliminate negative speech, watch your words, and your world will change. How to handle negative experiences in a positive way, because there's no such thing as a negative, is that's a less than desired experience. Okay, but you have to take ownership for it. All right, how you guys doing out there in Facebook land? How you doing on the Zoom room? If you raise your hand, I'm gonna tag some of you guys this morning. I want to say good morning to that's who's that this morning. That's Ken and Faye. I saw your hand raised. Did you have a question or did you have a comment?
Actually, we were reminding you about the name of the person, and it was Reverend Ike, but someone else told you.
Yes, you know who that someone else was? I got the signal. I picked your signal up and it hit, okay? Nobody in the physical told me. So here's what we have to understand. Just as we use telephones, just as we use cell phones, just as we can send a text message, we really have the ability to tap into our loved ones, our family members and friends. Have you ever thought of a person and out of nowhere or suddenly that person called you because they picked up the signal?
Yes.
Here's the problem. We don't know that we did that intentionally, and we don't know how to do it intentionally. So we have a hit and miss kind of thing. But we could put the cell phones companies out of business. We got a system that's better than 5G or 3G. If we can hook up to the download of the universe. So good morning, Ken, and good morning, Faye. Awesome.
Good morning.
Thank you for sharing that. What's the weather like in New York this morning?
Sunny and cold.
Okay. Well, I'll raise you. It's sunny and warm this morning in St. Louis. Warm is relative. To me, warm right now is probably about 57 degrees outside. So that's good. No, about 55. I kind of, sometimes I have a tendency to overextend something. So good. So we're going to jump right back into this morning's conversation. And thank you all for joining us this morning, okay? Awesome. Good. I'm going to go ahead and put your hand back down. Good. There we go. Awesome. Good. Let me look on Facebook before I jump into this morning's lesson to see if there's anything out there. Somebody saying, I see Sister Shawanda had also put Reverend Ike out there. Dr. Tumpe said Reverend Ike. All right, good. Talk to me on Facebook. Got a question, put it out there. So let us jump right into this morning's lesson. What I want you to understand today is why our thoughts have power. I want you to understand what spiritual thinking is. And we're going to look at the first fundamental for successful treatment. Okay. We want to take a definite step to eliminate negative speech this week. Why our thoughts have power. The individual might be likened to an electric light bulb. That's what you have to realize. The light manifests through it, but is not produced by it. So the light in your light bulb is not produced by the light bulb, but it contains the energy source of the light. And so that is an important distinction that I want you to understand, that our physical bodies have no light, but the light that we illuminate that comes through us comes from source in us. The element inside of us, just if you look at a light bulb, one that you can see and see the filament there, you see that that filament gives that light bulb the potential to produce, to exhibit, okay? Because the light bulb itself does not produce, but it gives the ability to um, um, exhibit, to press out. And so when you take that light bulb, as long as it's in the box, long as it is in your cupboard, it has a potentiality to be all that a light bulb could be. So if you pull the light bulb out of the closet and look on the box, it'll tell you 60 watts, 100 watts, 120 watts. It's that tell you the potentiality of that bulb. You likewise have a potentiality frequency that if you are ever connected to the right wattage and you identify that that wattage is in you, runs through you, you can then show up in a way that you have not. Here's the problem. We are dummied down by over identifying with our physical selves as just being skin and organs and a vascular system. Um, that's who we are. We're human, but we're more than human. We are divine spiritual beings inside of this thing called a body. And inside this thing called the body, there's a element known as God, source. But we don't connect to that element, so we are limited in our abilities to express. And most of us spend our entire lives expressing as ourselves, our ego or self-ish selves. We have so many years of that experience until finally we come to the realization there has to be a better way. And then for some way, somehow, we tune in, tap into the reality that we are one with Source and Source is one with us, and we should be manifesting as that divine spark. So our thoughts are powerful. The statements that Jesus had made as the great teacher, he would say that I and the Father are one. He was evidently referring to this connection, which explains the infinite power that's working through him. And that's what we have to get to. We got to get to the place of knowing that we are one with that power. And that power gives us whatever we say. If we say we're less than, then it cuts the frequency down that you cannot express more than. You can only express to the limit or to the level that you see yourself expressing as. So that's what the scripture says, grieve not the Holy Spirit. The grieving of the Holy Spirit is when you allow source, which is in you, only to express at a 60 wattage, when in essence you've been created to express at 100 watt. Now, your thoughts raise the frequency or cuts the frequency down. He says here in the book, so it's not man's thought of itself that produces the results. Man's thinking becomes the vehicle for the creative power to flow through. Man's mind is the wire along which power flows and power source from the power source to the electric bulb. You know, when you look in the bulb, there's that filament in there. So that's your mind. Okay. And so when your mind, which is connected to the deeper mind, that little silver piece that screws into the bulb, when that screws in and is connected to source, and even with that, know this. So you screw the bulb in your home, it connects to the electrical system. And if you follow the wiring, you will come to a place in your house where all your wiring come to. And that's all of that wiring goes out your house. If you get the chance, go out your house and look. You will see that there's a contraption there. And what it does, it takes the power that's coming from from the pole, which is far greater than 120 wattage or 220, whatever your house is running on, and it reduces it down so that your house don't disintegrate. And that's the same with each of us. We have a vibratory frequency that we can run at, and it does not allow anything greater than that frequency to connect in with you, so you don't burn out, so you don't kill yourself. But many of us are not running nowhere near the frequency that we can. So man's mind is the wire on which the power flows from the power source to the electric bulb. Now, you need to know that. So let's take a moment and look at material thinking, materialistic thinking versus spiritual thinking. At this point, you should begin to understand the meaning of spiritual thinking. This doesn't mean that you're a goody or sanctimonious thinking. It doesn't mean religious thinking. It does not necessarily have to do with the church attendance or Bible reading, although both of these exercises are desirable aids in cultivating a higher consciousness. If what you are studying is open to expanded revelation, but if it's limited to what has been, that's the problem with most religions. They're stuck in what was given at the turn of the century. They're stuck in what they knew at that time and have not incorporated the new revelations that science has given us. Science believes in the power of the mind. That's why when there is a new medicine on the market, they have to do a double-blind study. They have to give some people the real and some people the sugar pill, the sugar saline, or the saline that looks like but is not the actual thing, because they want to know how much of this results are attributed to what they call the placebo effect or the nocebo effect. And so the placebo effect is real. That is, your beliefs, whether they're steeped in science or not, if you believe them strong enough and you know them, then they work based on you believing them. That's important. Okay. Awesome. Good. Okay. So let me look here, see if I got any no questions, no feedback. That means you guys are getting it. We're at a sweet spot. Spiritual thinking is the method of thought that brushes aside the surface, physical, apparent interpretation of things and sees into the spiritual reality that is beneath, or what I would like to say, above. Okay. The surface is that what you could see. That which is above is that which is not seen with the natural eyes. Okay. Spiritual thinking has little to do with the sensory realm of the five senses. That you got to know that. Now, the contrast to that, which most of us are stuck in, is materialistic thinking. Okay. Materialistic thinking is occupied with what it can see, taste, smell, hear, and handle. The sensory influence. It accepts only that which can be mathematically demonstrated or proved in the laboratory. Now, God has never been seen, but we believe in it. His existence cannot be proved. Therefore, the materialist makes the mistake of ignoring the existence of the silent, unseen power that acts within them. They give no credence to the Amen, the unseen force. So they are materialistic, and many of us are materialistic. That is, we don't believe it till we see it. What I'm saying, if you can think it, if you can hold it, if you can imagine it, it's just as real as if it is in the realm of reality. Now, I'm not one to say that reality, I don't live in denial. I identify with the truth that there is a pandemic happening in America right now. That's the reality. But the reality does not have to be my truth. Just because others are overtaken by it, and that's no judgments, it doesn't make me better than. It just means that there's awareness or consciousness that I walk inside of that keeps me from running the vibration of fear. Because if you run the vibration of fear, then you get on the frequency that allows for that thing to infect you or be affected. I'm sure I've been infected with the coronavirus, but it does not have the ability to affect. See, infect and affect. You could be infected, but not affected because you have an inoculation that is not given to you by another pill or a needle. And now I want to take a moment right now. If you have been taking medicine, if you believe in Western science, then fine, you could take this shot. It doesn't make you any less than, but make room for those who are inside of these teachings and living it out. It's because those who live it out and let it be known that they're not doing certain things that you can see a testimony. You can see that because this brother or sister did not succumb to it, but they did not use the world system, there is the possibility of another way. So when myself or someone else shares that they're not taking a shot, now some people are just not taking the shot just in denial. They're not working any higher principle. They just they're saying I'm not taking the shot because they are fearful of the meds, and so they just say they're not taking. But I'm talking about that person who is on that higher frequency, that is saying that there's a possibility that I can get through this without having to do what the world is doing. That's the spiritual thinker, not the material thinker. Okay, now the spiritual thinker has had experiences with the depth of his own inner self, such as myself. These inner communings cannot be just demonstrated in the laboratory. There's some things you can't replicate in the laboratory. There's things you have to experience. So I had a bout with asthma as a kid. It was the contrast that introduced me to a conversation of possibility of being whole, healed, and well. And so I began to look at an opportunity to delve into other things to see if they worked. And as a result, for 30 years, a good 30 years, I have not even been dealt the blow of the common cold, because that's what I was focusing on. I was focusing on I would not get sick. And I moved my thought process from what I wouldn't do to focusing on what I could do. I could live a life without being influenced by that experience. So notice that I shifted. So what's the opposite of the experience of sickness and disease? Yes, wholeness, health, and wellness. And so I shift my thought to that, not the possibility of the other end. What you focus on is what you create. And so even if you are saying you want wholeness and health and healing, but that conversation is generated from a place of fear that you don't want to experience the contrast, the universe only knows what you say. What you say is not what you just say with your mouth, but what do you emit? Do you emit the frequency of wholeness and health, or do you emit the frequency of sickness and disease? And many of us are emitting that frequency of the very thing we don't want to experience. Good morning, Kelvin. It's good to see you on Facebook. Thanks for joining us this morning. Okay. The materialist believes in the surgeon's knife, but not in the spiritual union of source. So many of us will, if as a materialist, we believe more in our physicians, we believe more in our medicine doctors, even those who practice natural healing. Herbs, that's the same thing. I'm saying we can get beyond herbs. We don't need any physical thing to heal ourselves other than our mind. Now, a lot of people will argue me on this, not because it's not true, but it'll take them out of business. Because some people's business is the business of keeping you buying herbs, medicine. What's the difference between an herbalist and a pharmacist? They both are selling you something material to give you that what you desire in the way of better health. If that's what you choose, I'm not saying it's incorrect, but for me and my house, we choose to serve the Lord. And what do I mean by the Lord? I'm not talking about a physical being. I'm talking about the law of thought. So I'm introducing you to the ability to change your world by the words you speak and the thoughts you think. So the spiritual thinker places a higher value on ideals of the unseen than the material advantage of what they can see. Because they know if they can see it in the unseen, that it will replace what is known as the reality of the seen. That's important. It's not that we lose sight of the fact that the line of division between the two categories is always definite. There's always the spiritual and there's always the material, but we choose to let our focus be on the spirit realm because the word says, for man, things are natural before spiritual. But for God, and who is God? Anyone who identifies with God's source. So that's you and I. See, religion has put us in a place where we have a hard time identifying with God because God is something out there. God is a man, and for most cases, has been presented as a white male that sits high, looks low, looking to zap you. When the reality of it is that God is spirit. The Bible tells us God is neither Jew, nor Greek, nor female, nor male, nothing material. God is immaterial. God is energy. God is the essence of what's behind everything, energy. So let's talk about thoughts becoming things. So I'm going to see no hands out there. Nobody's, no questions to be answered. So I'm going to keeping on. I'm keep on pushing on. So let's look at thoughts become things. We are right at 10:45. So I'm going to go through here. I'll pull out some things I really want you to come away with. One of the fundamentals of the science of mind, and I want to step back beyond the science of mind. One of the fundamentals of the creative force inside of the Nile Valley was their identifying with the essence of life is in them. Somehow they were able to create the pyramids and all those other things. And to this day, we really don't know how they did it, but we do know that they understood the power of thought. Okay, so example. If you study Greek mythology, it talks about Thoth, Thoth, or also known as Mercury. But before the Greeks got a hold to it, and before they changed the name, it was Tahuti. Tahuti is, well, I think I have an image of this statue that you see right here in front of me. This is a statue of Tahuti, the ibis bird, which was a water bird, and you see that it holds a stylus in its hand, and it holds a tablet that it writes on. So what they would call the neuter, or the principle of writing, and misnomer as the god of writing, is this figure, which I hold here, and that's Tahuti. Okay, so that's on my desk always, that I be present to I have the mind of Christ. I have the ability to tune in, tap into something greater than my own expression, greater than my own experience. I am not limited by what I have experienced. I'm not limited by what I know in the sensory realm. And once I come into that realization, I open myself up to tune in, tap into, to download whatever is needed for right here, right now. Man's inner world of thought is translated into his outer world of things. Now get that. Your inner world of thought translates into your outer world of things. Wrong thoughts in, wrong thoughts out. Right thinking in, right expressions out. Got to learn how to understand, differentiate between every thought. It said, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Every thought that you're thinking is not generated from source. To correct that, you learn to spend more time in meditation. Then you begin to think what source thinks. That's why the historical persons of Jesus is stated to have said that I do no thing except I see and hear my Father doing. And so we have to get to the realization that in it, I live, I move, I have my being. But we live in a dual world. Our egotistical self, which is our soulish realm, superimposes itself on our spiritual realm. And therefore, we find ourselves living in two worlds, experiencing two realities. And that can lend to a level of frustration, a level of schizophrenic thought. So let me take a sip here. He goes on to say, there is no inner yardstick to measure the quality, the depth, the height of man's thinking. But as water cannot rise higher than its source, man's world of affairs can rise no higher than its inner source. And I always say, water always returns to its lower source. And that's why when you run into somebody, you might be on a high vibration, and somebody who you have gotten their attention, they can temporarily take their vibration up to your level, and you think you guys are a match. But she can't maintain that vibrational level that you own. And now you find yourself in a relationship with somebody who is draining your battery, and you don't understand how it happened. You begin to say, how did I attract that? It's not so much that you attracted that, it was that thing was attracted to you, and that thing attached to you, but that thing was not able to stay with you. And what you tend to do is dummy down your frequency to stay in relationship with that. I like Esther Hicks. She always talks about the vortex, how things are thrown out the vortex. So when people are thrown out of your vibrational frequency, don't go and get them. Okay, if they try to jump back in, if they get in where they fit in, fine. But you stay focused on what your frequency is, what your expression of life is. Now, man's highest thought. So what is the highest thought that you're capable of? We find that the answer must be that his loftiest thought is that which is concerned with the ideals we have just mentioned, even higher thoughts that center themselves in the spiritual, unguided intelligence. So you can only ascend to the highest level of source in you. And you can only make that ascension when you have a level of awareness that there is something greater than you, something that resides in you. And that thing is available to you, and you can use it. Now you have to learn to find out what is your soul path, what is your soul purpose. For the word says, whom God calls, it also equips. So everything you have is available to you. No, everything you need is available to you. You just have to find all the pieces and put them together. So a couple of things. New Thought talks about God is order, God is harmony, God is power, God is wisdom, God is love. So those are some of the ideals. That same principle is found in Ma'at, M-A apostrophe A-T, Ma'at. So you get a chance, begin to put that in your list of things to become familiar with. It's the um, Kemetic or the Nile Valley um, principle of right living. It's the principle of oneness of everything. So I encourage you to look that up. So let's talk about treatment. Um, Treating for health. He talks about we do not lay hands for healing. We do not treat the physical organ. We treat the underlying thought that is causing the illness. So we don't really look at the fruit, but we look at the root. Okay. The only tool we use in treatment is constructive thought, which is more powerful than dynamite. So when you are engaging what we call a spiritual scientist or a mind scientist or one who will give you a spiritual treatment, they're not going to focus so much on the manifestation and the name that that thing is given, but we are looking at the constructive thought behind that. And one of the first things we want to understand that the body produces to us a message that we are not paying attention to. So if something's wrong with your heart, you want to understand what does the heart mean metaphysically? If something's wrong with your lower back, what does that mean metaphysically? Don't just automatically go to correct the thing or to get rid of the manifestation of the thing, but you want to look at what's behind the manifestation of the thing. Okay. And once you do that, that's where you begin to make adjustments. Okay. The science of mind way of dealing with this is to turn immediately from all the physical symptoms and focus the mind on our concept of source, of God, and of ourselves as reproducing its nature. We turn our thoughts toward that which is the very essence of order and harmony. Okay, toward that which is very representative of source. For illness is disorder, it's dis-ease. Your ease is the proper resonance. Dis-ease is disease. Okay? That means we are in harmony with. We should put away all thought of curability or incurability of a condition. So you want to get rid of curability and incurability and know that we are dealing with a power that is limitless. We have to stop thinking of the fact that the doctor has said, I can do no more, and fill our thoughts with the contemplation of the wisdom that has the exact knowledge of every step of the building process that creates brand new cells, each step with wisdom of his own perfection. Example, when you get a paper cut, you may look at it, you come to the realization there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't need a stitch or a suture. I can put a Band-Aid on it. All I should do is just step back and know that that paper cut is going to take care of itself. So what's the difference between a cancerous liver and a paper cut? As far as the body is concerned, nothing. The body will heal itself. But the only problem is we don't cease and desist thinking the thoughts that cultivated that thing. We don't cease and desist the thoughts that cultivate a certain eating pattern. So as a result, the thing called epigenetics, that genome is cut on that will produce a cancerous liver because of the environment. The petri dish, your body, is the perfect environment for that thing to manifest. So your thought becomes things. So your thought goes into the petri dish of your body. And the petri dish of your body will produce after the kind of the thought that you've been thinking. So that's important. So we don't treat for the outward observance. Now let's talk about treating for prosperity. Now, when you get the lecture that I have already assigned, already taped, it's going to go deeper into what I've just touched on. So when we talk about treating for prosperity, such as what we just talked about, you would never be able to successfully treat for prosperity if your thoughts are held steadily on the thing that you don't have. If you're focusing on lack and now you're treating for prosperity, but it is cultivated by the callous is the lack of it, you're going to get what your real attention is on lack. That's what that says. We must learn how to turn instead toward that which is forever self-sufficient, which calls upon its own inexhaustible resources whenever anything is needed in manifestation. The word says, the Lord is my shepherd. The law is my shepherd. The law is my guide. I shall not want. So the moment I see something I desire, I connect with it, I resonate with it, I turn away from it, and I know that it is. That's why each day I pray, Father, give to me that which represents your highest and greatest good, that you may experience this life in the manner that you desire to experience it. And I just roll with it, go with the flow with it. Well, let's wrap up. I got about a couple minutes. I want to wrap up with talking about eliminating negative speech. Psalms 141 and 3. Somebody type that into the chat room for me on Facebook. The 141st division of Psalms, verse 3. Type that in there so it'll be anchored there so others can find it. It says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. I mean, that's Psalms 19 and 14. Let the words, so put both of those there. Psalms 19 and 14 and Psalms 141 and 3. Let the words of my mouth, the meditation of my mouth be acceptable. I remember when I was preaching in the Baptist church, they would have this thing on the pulpit and you would sing that, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable. Now, you know why I don't sing for myself on Sundays, but that would be the mantra that the preacher would say before he gets started, as though he is opening up the door for spirit to come forth. And he's opening up the door for the spirit to come forth, but he has his scripted out message. So you're saying one thing, but you're doing another thing. That's living in two worlds. Many times when I teach or when I preach, I will only have an outline. I will not have a verbatim. I cannot preach from a verbatim speech. I have to make room for source to tune in, tap into me. And so it may be somebody in the room that what I thought I should talk about, but when I introduce that same topic, I introduce it from an angle that get that person in, because we're all one. And I trust the process. Psalms 141 and 3 says, set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. And we always got to do that. Set a watch, put a centurion, put a guard on my mouth that it will not let out of my mouth that which I don't want to let into my life. Can you get that? Put a guard on your mouth that does not allow anything to go out of your mouth that you don't want in your life. It says, set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth, keep the door of my lips. That's David speaking right there. This verse embodies another fundamental underlying giving of successful treatment. Okay? We cannot always check our thoughts because our thoughts are so lightning fast, but we can check our mouth. We can bridle our tongues. Never, ever, 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 never give utterance to that which is negative. Even though it's negative, source don't know negative and positive. Source only knows what you say. I want you to ruminate in that. I want you to ruminate in that. That's important. Watch your words. The chief thing for our liberation is our tongues. However, that we check our speech whenever we catch ourselves starting such subjects. When you catch yourself in the midst of a conversation that is not representing your highest and greatest good, pump the brakes. And the more you pump the brakes, the more you catch yourself, the less frequently you'll have those thoughts and those conversations. Important. It's not necessary that you sit tight-lipped, disapproving at every thought that comes, but you want to be mindful. There are so many more happy, hopeful things going on in life that we don't have to focus on the negatives. So set a watch. So let's talk about that. Let's be mindful. Even when we're giving news, are we rehearsing what has happened that we don't want to happen? But just by the mere fact of us giving audience to that thing, we are allowing that thing to be present to right here, right now. What has past is now present. Oh, I wish I could find a place where you can turn on a channel where it's all positive news. Everything is positive, not accentuating the negative. That would be such a lovely thing. So how do you handle negative experience in a positive way? But someone says, what if my husband has just lost his job or simply cannot afford the television set? Are we to ignore these facts? No, I'm not saying you denial. Denial is not, so Mary Baker Eddy, she was one of the great thought leaders in the science of the mind movement. But she is being brought up on charges of a plagiarism. And part of the plagiarism has to do with her denying at one time access to some of these things that she promoted as hers from other individuals. So here's what the thing: denial can become so strong that it becomes your reality. So we got to watch that. Okay. There are positive ways and negative ways of discussing even the reality of what is. Losing a job may be regarded as either an ending or a beginning. So you could discuss it from an ending perspective and you're sad and you're wondering what's next. Or you could discuss the losing of a job from the perspective of a letting go, of a releasing, of there's something better coming my way. How you deal with the matter dictates whether it will be experienced as negative or positive. Someone has said that the difference between an optimist and a pessimist is seen in this ways. Suppose each has a half glass of water. The pessimist says, too bad, my glass is already half empty. The optimist says, good, my glass is still half full. Same amount of water, but two ways of regarding it. The person who lives in the now says, I have what I need right now. I'm only going to drink 2 gulps. Anything more than that is more than enough. So we're always so concerned with the reality of not enough, when the reality is there's more than enough. We say, Jehovah Jireh, God is my provider. You can't provide if there's no provision. That's important. The pessimist will say, I lost my job. Whatever will I do now? That's the pessimist. The optimist will say, well, that's the end of that. I wonder what's next. A bigger, a better opportunity. A door lies open for me. So how you frame what is transpiring in your life is important. So if you are part of the course, you will get the in-depth teaching that's already taught. I just wanted to highlight some things for today based on who showed up. So I believe I highlighted those things that was important for the audience today. I want you to look for your homework assignment, re-listen to the lecture, and then answer the questions that are in the assignment for you. That's important. Okay, I want to open up for questions, feedback, observations, comments, and then we're going to wrap up for today. All right, let me go to my Facebook audience and see what's going on. While we're waiting for you to gather your thought, your question that you have, your answer is only as powerful as the question. I want to say that this course is gifted. That means there's no charge. Saturday school, absolutely free. But if this teaching has any value for you, consider making a donation. And so I'm going to drop, I'm going to ask if someone could type in to, if you're on Facebook, type this in, www, yes, period, the place of, all one word, no spaces, www.theplaceofpossibilities, plural, POSSIBILITIES.com. www.theplaceofpossibilities.com. And when you type that in and when you hit that link, then you're going to go to the tab that says giving. Okay. And there you can gift into this ministry at whatever measure you desire. But know this, the word says, whatever measure you meet, it should be measured back to you. Okay. And so if you want more, you give as more. If you give from the place of I only have, then you will only get. Okay. Free yourself up. And that's why I make the opportunity for you to sow, to operate the law of circulation, that you can free yourself up. Giving prosperity is a spiritual thing. It's not a material thing, but the spiritual thing manifests in the material world. Awesome. Okay, so I want to open up for questions. I'm going to go to. Let me look over here in the Q&A. I have a awesome. Here's one from New York City, from Ken and Faye. In relationship to thoughts becoming things. Yesterday, I thought of someone in London. And within minutes, the phone rang and they were on the line. Is that what is referred to as telepathy? Yes, it is. They just can't charge for it. Okay, but that is correct. You send a charge and that charge registered to them and it hits home. And they also at that time was thinking of you. And they said, let me call Faye. And they called you from London. And what a beautiful connection was. It started with the gratitude statement. I was just thinking of you. That's how that works. Awesome. Let me see if there's any other questions out there. Faye says, great teaching. We got it over in the chat. Looks like I have, okay. Okay, Faye, I see your hand is up. I hope it still is up. Oh, good. If you had something to say, Faye, just go ahead and unmute your mic. That may have remained up from before. But Trinity, she states, Bill Winston, good observation. Now, just like Mary Baker Edie did not give, or she did not footnote Quimby, didn't footnote all the individuals that had contributed to her message. She presented as though it was just a new thought that came to her. Individuals like Bill Winston. Now, I esteem Bill Winston highly. He has taken this metaphysical conversation and introduced it to the traditional Christian system, the word church. But all of his teachings, all of them, every one of them, I can connect it to a New Thought teaching that I can connect back to one of the New Thought teachers, and I can connect it even back further beyond. And that's what I'm in the process of doing. I'm reading a couple of books right now. I'm going to share with you, and I'm not sharing these books that you go out and get them because maybe it's not what you're called to do, but I'm reading a book called New Thought, Ancient Wisdom of the New Thought Movement, written by Glenn Mosley, The History of New Thought. I'm reading that. Okay, I'm rereading that. And one book I picked up this week is called The Romance of Metaphysics, an introduction to the history, theory, and psychology of modern metaphysics. See, I'm not playing. I'm in this game for real. I am a teacher, so I must open mind, expand what I know that others may grow. Now, some of you may say, I want the books, but some of you don't even need to buy the book. All you need is to be present right here, right now. And you'll know when you need to get that book. Okay, so don't run off and try to buy everything you hear me talk about. Don't try to read everything you hear me talking about. That which resonates with you is where you should put your focus and where you should put your attention. Good morning, Courtney Bates. Good to see you. I pray things are doing well for you down in the Carolinas. Well, it looks like nobody has any other questions. And we are right at the 10, 11 minutes after the hour. I've covered quite a bit, but I hope something has been said that is uplifting and encouraging. I thank those of you who are supporting the work this morning by making a donation at whatever level. Many people are not even going to church anymore. Many people are coming to the realization that they are not having to tithe mandatorily. Now, here's the thing. The principle of the tithe works, but it does not work when you receive it in a mandatory manner. When you really understand the principle of the tithe, it goes beyond the 10%. So one who really understands the law of circulation, understand the law of the law of abundance, knows that they give inside of the measure of what they've received. It's a gratitude of giving back. And it's like when you give into a ministry, it's like sowing it into the ground. And if you sow a seed into a ground that is not fertile, then you won't get a yield. But when you find yourself coming back here, that means that you're getting a yield. And to cultivate that field where you're getting your yield, you sow into it. So I thank you this morning, this afternoon. Whenever you're looking at this, consider sowing a seed. And don't sow it because Greg has a need or Greg is presenting with greed, but sow it because Greg has expanded, Asar has expanded your understanding of prosperity. Well, that's all I have today. So I want to close out with a little more happy jazz. And I want to say thank you for your time, for mine is spent. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Tupe, for putting that in to the website or the Facebook chat room. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Shawanda. Thank you, Calvin. Those who have shown up this morning and those whose names I don't see but I know are present. Thank you for joining in with us on this morning. All right. That's another Saturday School in the books. I'm going to go. I'm going to put down these books. I'm going to hit the street, take care of some Saturday morning things. Enjoy this day. And I'll see many of you tomorrow morning for Serendipity Sunday. Okay, right here in Zoom, on this Zoom platform, you will get a link for that, and we will go from there. Have a wonderful day. Peace.